Hello, and welcome to Envelope to Expiration, a podcast by Pack Up and Go. I'm your host, Carl, and I'm so very excited to be joining you all for yet another episode. I am very excited to welcome an amazing guest to today's show. Stephanie Puglisi is the VP of Content for all Road Pass digital brands, an expert writer, and a road trip enthusiast. When she's not helping inspire others to hit the open road, you can find her exploring around the US with her family in their RV and hosting her own podcast, the RV Atlas Podcast. Stephanie, thank you so much for joining us today. Welcome to the show. How are you?
Oh, thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be on and to talk about the exciting road trip season that's just around the corner.
Yes, and I am very excited to talk about all things road trips as I recently took a road trip from Austin to Chicago, which I loved, but enough about that and how long that trip was.
I'm sure you have plenty of stories.
Oh, yes.
And we have a wonderful series called Voices from the Road over at Road Trippers Magazine. So if you're inspired to tell your story about that road trip, check us out over there, Carl.
I actually am. I have a lot of stories I'm excited to share. So, Stephanie, if you don't mind me asking, how did you start your career, the adventure with Road Pass?
Well, I was actually in education for about 15 years before I turned a corner into the full time content creation world. So, as an educator, I'm sure many teachers and educators out there are aware of the side hustle, right? There's always that extra work that you're doing on the side to make ends meet. And I did a lot of freelance writing. When my twin sons were born, I had been a road trip enthusiast since a very young age. Even as a teenager, I did huge road trips cross country down to New Orleans for Jazz Fest, things like that. And suddenly, road tripping didn't seem as fun with two little babies, and things kind of felt like a little different and harder. So, we bought a pop up camper. Thinking, okay, at least this will give us our own separate place, right? We can still road trip and have a bed to put them to sleep in at night. And we started writing about that. That was about 13 or 14 years ago. And we wrote more and more about that until we got our first book deal. And then it became my full time job after a while. And so now I've been in the content creation business for the camping, RVing, and road tripping industry full time for about 8 or 9 years.
Wow. And you know what's so fascinating is that my background is in education. I was a teacher for 10 years. Never thought I would be a teacher. Never
Yeah.
thought I'd be a director. Had no inspiration to do that. But I fell into it and I absolutely loved it after my first year and I stayed in it for 10 years. But that eventually led me to want to share because, teaching is about sharing, caring, uplifting people. And that's kind of what led me to jump into my career in podcast and also talking about travel as well. So, what does the day to day look like for you working as the VP of content at RoadPass? And what are some of the things that you really, really enjoy doing and sharing with people as a part of your job that you have now?
Yeah, wow. Day to day. Every day is different, which I think as a teacher, right, background, I think that's important. I don't know how anybody does a job that looks the same every day, right? My whole life I've been kind of flying by the seat of my pants through any given day. So I have an amazing editorial team at RoadPass, and we publish all the content across 4 different brands. So Road Trippers, Togo RV, Campendium, and Our Village. And so we're responsible for every single article that you see go up there. We'll curate landing pages, right, that are thematic, say our national parks landing page, our family trips, camping, glamping, those kinds of things. We also just launched a course program, Togo University, which is for all of these people. We all know that everybody bought an RV, right, in the last couple of years. So we have started to develop some courses to help these new RV owners learn how to use their rig and learn how to book campsites. So we have about 5 courses live and more coming for camping and RVing. And we do all of our editorial emails and newsletters across those brands, help social with reels that connect. So we have a really robust editorial calendar that we're managing on a daily basis.
And you know what? My mother always talks about how she grew up and my grandfather would take her out in the RV and do all that. But never once did she take me in an RV.
Oh, that's terrible. I'll take you, Carl.
Can you just talk a little bit about like why RVs are so amazing? Some of the experiences that you've had or you can have within them, and why the RV surge happened recently.
Yeah. So, I think that the magic of RVing changes depending on what season of life you're in. So, like I said, we bought our first camper when we had 11-month-old twins. And the magic at that point was it allowed us to still have really quite remarkable adventures while still having that like base camp that we could outfit for them, right? We had some really terrible hotel experiences with babies, like when we first tried to travel. And we were, I mean, just not having any of their stuff and all the noise. And then you put your kids to bed and you didn't know what to do with yourself. Like you're like, wait, when we went camping, we could put them to bed in their own little cribs that we had outfitted in the, pop up camper. And we could sit around the campfire and connect. And we could go camping with friends, right? And so we basically were having these date nights at the campground and in some really beautiful places like Acadia National Park and Shenandoah National Park. And we could go down to Myrtle Beach and have wonderful food. And, it just helped us feel a freedom that sometimes newer parents can feel is taken away from them, right? And then, that changed over the years. Later on, as the kids got older, the magic was taking them to the things they had never seen before, right? And giving them all these new experiences. And we loved going to cities like Charleston and doing, historical tours with them. And we love taking them to their first large mountains out west. So, and I think that later on in life, we'll probably see the magic as being able to do things right once the kids have left the nest as it, and have those experiences that we haven't had over the last 20 years raising kids. So, you know, I think the reason why RVs are having a moment in the last 2 years, to be quite frank, is that we all lost a lot of our freedoms, right? Just of movement, of interaction, of a lot of things. And RVs really do help you feel like you're in control of a situation. They help you feel like you can manage your safety, manage your travel a little bit more, not get stuck in places like you might if you were flying somewhere. So, this was the perfect time to buy an RV for a lot of people, and they did, right? The numbers were through the roof. They're still month over month beating records, for RV sales. So it just makes sense as a way to travel these days.
That's amazing. And I know that road trips are your preferred method of travel, right? So, what do you like most about them? And what are some difficulties that you may have encountered over the course of all the road trips you've either taken yourself or you've talked about, that you've kind of overcome as a part of the entire road trip process?
Yeah. So, like I said, I am a road trip enthusiast. Yes, we did get the RV, and the RV is part of a lot of our road trips, but not all of them. We actually do a lot of fly and drive road trips now that our kids are a little bit older. And again, we still do the road trip. So, for example, we might fly from New Jersey out to the Pacific Northwest, but we did a 3-week road trip out along the coast of the Pacific Northwest, visiting all of the different national parks out there, but also Seattle and Portland. And it was just an amazing experience. Last summer, we were in Yellowstone in the Tetons, in a car, just driving around, going to Cody and going everywhere. And the reason why I really believe in the road trip, right? It's not just like it's fun. It is. But it's also really valuable to me, like because of the concept of slow travel, right? There's just a difference in your level of flexibility, in your level of patience, in what expect from the world around you when you're doing slow travel, as opposed to like, I get on a plane here, I get off here, everything's right in front of me, and it's planned from, A to Z, and I know what my itinerary is. Road tripping demands a level of flexibility and appreciation for Kismet that I don't think other types of travel do, right? Like you just know that things are probably not going to go exactly as you planned, and that's part of the experience. That's part of the journey. And there's a lot of clichés, right, that you could whip out at this point about, the journey being more important than the destination. And but those things, I mean, those are at the heart of the Road Trippers product. Really, Road Trippers has been around since the early 2000, I think like 13 ish. And the founder, James Fisher, I mean, he was allergic to trip planning. He thought that everything should be a discovery. His original concept of the product was, as you're driving down the road, this app is showing you all of the amazing things that are around you popping up, and you're thinking, "Oh, I want to go there and I want to go there." So, the very product of Road Trippers was founded in that idea that road trips should not be this planned itinerary, right, from A to Z, but rather just a discovery of the world around you.
And one thing that you said that I can certainly relate to is patience. I think being a teacher for as many years as I was, I think before I did it, I did not have a lot of patience, but I definitely learned it through that experience. What advice would you give to first time parents who are taking that first step and joining the open road and doing road trips with their children? What would you say to them, and how would you encourage them to, you know, do more than just the first trip?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I would say don't wait. There's a lot of parents that say, I'm going to wait till they're this old. I'm going to wait till they can do this or they can do that. My first piece of advice is do not wait. It actually gets harder if kids aren't trained early like my kids are like road trip Jedi masters. They just can get in the car and go for these long periods of time. And it's because we've been doing it with them since they were babies. So I really know, I've seen firsthand how much it pays off to just do that training early on, right? And then it pays off in other ways too when we travel, like not just on the road trip. They're just really good travelers now because we've been doing it since they were little. So I'd also say too, make sure everybody is having fun. Not all the time, but make everybody a part of the journey, both the adults and the kids. So I really like to balance adult activities and kids activities. And I want my kids to learn how to appreciate the things that I love to do, right? So if we love to surf, then we want to teach our kids how to do that so they can enjoy that with us, or kayaking or biking or things like that, hiking. But then also understand that maybe not every kid is going to love hiking. It doesn't mean that you should not do it or that you shouldn't bribe them with Skittles, to get to the top of the mountain, because I have done that and I'm not embarrassed to say it. It's like, but then what do they like to do? What is special to them, and embrace that as well and plan that together. So something that comes again, I think my teaching background has helped me tremendously in a million different ways in life, but pre-teaching, right, in a classroom is a common concept where before you dive into a topic or before you do an experiment or go on a field trip, you do a lot of pre-teaching to get the kids' brains ready for what they're about to learn. That's been tremendously important for my kids. So if we're going to Mount St. Helens, right, like we might be listening to the I Survived book ahead of time in the car on the way there, right? Or showing them YouTube videos, right, of Mount St. Helens explosion. And it just gets them so excited to go there. And then when they're there, it's not like they're just reading plaques, right? Or like they really are ready for the story and they're really ready for the place to come alive. So that's been super helpful. And then the last thing I would say is don't wing it. I just talked about all that magic stuff with road trips. If you have kids, you are just going to be better off if you do have a plan, right? Yes, be flexible. Know that plans may change and things may go awry, and you're not going to have a meltdown in a parking lot. Just eat a snack if you ever feel like having a meltdown when you're traveling, right? But, definitely do not show up without reservations somewhere, right? In this day and age, when the road trip has exploded again, RVs, are selling like hotcakes. Make sure you have your reservations. Make sure you know where you're going. Make sure you have your car rental if you're flying into places. There's things that used to be a lot easier to fly by the seat of your pants that just aren't anymore.
Absolutely. And again, I think As you were speaking, I'm also doing a little bit of self reflection on how teaching has impacted the way that I travel and do things as well. And oh my God, yes, pre teaching is so important. And it's not even just pre teaching your kids or your family members. It's even yourself, like preparing yourself for what possibly could be, or things that could also happen, or even about the place that you're going. It's just so important. So with that, like, where is your favorite place in the U.S. that you have ever explored, either by yourself or with your family members?
This is my least favorite question ever. You have to know, Carl. It feels like, right? It's that classic, like choosing between your kids kind of a thing. Like, it really feels awful to pick favorites because I've just been so blessed to have just so many remarkable travel experiences over the last couple of decades. But I would say that there's some ones that kind of stand out as being very important in my life and in my memories. And the first would be Acadia National Park. So I don't know if I mentioned already, but I am an East Coast girl, right? Jersey girl. And so Acadia National Park was that first, it's not far, it's up in Maine on the coast. And it really was that first national park experience for me that really, like, the bug bit me. It was like, this is amazing, this is magical, I love this place. And we've returned over and over again at really important times in my life when you know things maybe like travel may be challenging, right? Or I hadn't hiked again with kids. And it was like the first time I remember having a baby backpack on, and doing a hike up to the top of the mountain. So, really great moments have happened in Acadia National Park for me. So, it's a special place. And then across the country, I mentioned the Pacific Northwest, right? It's like the opposite end. That's a really special place for me too, because of that 3-week road trip that we took with our kids. And that was the first time we had done like a fly and drive. And it was so much fun. They were old enough to just be such great travel buddies. I think that they were probably in like, my twins were probably 9 and my little guy was probably 5. And they were all just so invested in everything, right? From Crater Lake National Park to the Redwoods to Mount St. Helens and Olympic. I mean, it was just like the amount of amazing experiences we had in that area of the country was really felt breathtaking. But then if you had to ask me what like would be if I could go anywhere tomorrow in the country, it would be always and every time Glacier National Park. Like, just if I could click my heels and be somewhere at any given time and feel the weight of the world come off my shoulders, it would be Glacier.
And I think the beauty of content creation, or one of the beauties, is that you get to share and you get to see people's feedback and reaction to the things that you're sharing with them, and the messaging that you're trying to get across.